Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. My name is Sohum, and today I'm bringing you another double reaction, and I think this is going to be the perfect double reaction to start my week on, because both of these tracks today are going to be, I believe, very piano heavy songs. One will be from Ludovico Einaudi. He's an Italian composer and pianist. I've actually heard a handful of his songs before. I had to look this up on my Spotify, but I know from Ludovico the songs Elegy for the Arctic Experience and 7 Days, oh, where'd it go? 7 Days Walking / Day 3 Cold Wind. So, when I listen to piano, sometimes names like Ludovico's will come up and I don't know them precisely. I just listen to the music and it fits that study vibe, and then I add it to my playlist. I had no idea that I'd actually listened to a little bit of Ludovico before actually doing the explicit search. So we're going to start with Ludovico and listen to his song Primavera. Then we're going to jump into Yann Tiersen's Amelie soundtrack. And interestingly, when I was in high school, I took French. It was the language of my choice. I loved the way it flowed so romantically, very legato of a language. I mean, it is a romance language among the others, but for some reason, French really spoke to me. And our French teacher, I'm forgetting which year this was now, it doesn't really matter, but had shown us the movie Amelie. So I don't remember all of the plot line of that movie, but I do remember the soundtracks being pretty lovely to listen to. So this is almost going to be a little bit of the blast from the past for me, because right now I don't remember what the soundtrack was like, but maybe it'll help reinvigorate my memory. But either way, I couldn't be more excited for this reaction, and that is all thanks to Graham the Dreamy. So thank you, Graham, very much. Hope you're having a wonderful week. Now, let's jump in. It's a beautiful name too, Ludovico Einaudi. Part of me thinks I'm Italian in another life. Ah. I love how all the melody is captured in this bright lead. With great composers, we pay attention to the notes they accent, and then the strings just adding so much width to this track. This arpeggiated pattern is it's very attainable. Like, this is the song that would be fun to learn on piano. It feels right in that, like, beginner intermediate sweet spot. I mean, you could use this song for a movie score. Really, any introspective feeling you want, you can kind of get. Primavera, what does this mean? Let me look. Primavera refers to several things, including the Italian word for spring. I see. So now I'm actually seeing the vision entirely, because my brain just populated with all of these sounds, sights, feelings that spring brings with it. With a hint of drama, I can see the movie scene unfold before me. Wow, that is just tailor-made for emotion. And like if you think about the idea of spring, right? After winter where life becomes more cold, there's less color, people are sadder, nature itself is less outwardly vibrant in the ways that it is during spring and summer. So it's almost like you have this rebirth of nature after its own sorrow. But I wouldn't necessarily say that winter has to be sorrowful. I think it's more about how we humans engage with winter and how it actually makes us feel physiologically, because there's literally such a thing as seasonal affective disorder. So, having to do with like our vitamin D3 levels, I believe. So we may feel terrible about the winter time just in general comparatively to spring. We can't like harvest our crops in the same way. We can't thrive in the same way outwardly. But it doesn't necessarily mean that nature is suffering. It just means that this is now its new cycle. So I like that we now get this feeling of rebirth where everything is very energetic and bright and filled with just like the emotions dialed up a little bit more. And that's why like counterintuitively too, well maybe not counterintuitively, it depends on what your knowledge base is. But during the summer is when crime increases almost like by a multitude, by like a large magnitude versus winter. So everything is dialed up, emotions in the positive and in the negative. It's interesting to like just think about the seasons in general and how they impact us. This is a beautiful song. This is the kind of thing that I would add to my study playlist. Although it's so interesting that like it could be distracting. There's something like very minimalist about this. It's like contemporary classical as well. Maybe that's a way I could put it. Because it's just piano, just strings. But it doesn't fully feel classical. There's this edge to it. There's this like lead melody feel to it that I wouldn't expect necessarily in classical. I like this section. I love this like somber section. There's got to be a better way to describe it, but it's sometimes hard for me to like put my descriptors to orchestral pieces because it is just such an overwhelming feeling of emotion from section to section. Yeah, it's a very, very pretty melody. I find that a song like this, it sits it sits like directly in the middle of my analytical brain and my emotions because there are no lyrics first and foremost to pay attention to. So it's really just about the melody and the textures, the richness from the strings and piano that fill my heart up with emotion. And then I essentially take my brain and project onto the song the feelings that I get from this track. And it kind of reminds me of film. It reminds me of like medieval times. In a weird sense too, this song feels, because now that I know that it's in the context of spring, it feels like it is about the burst of color that comes from the advent of spring. And as is the case with all of the world's seasons, as we change, there is a lot of tumult in those in those periods of time and change. And of course, it's never just exactly linear either. So one day it's going to be a lot colder in spring than it was relatively in winter. And you're going to have these weird blends of seasons, creating complex emotions. But as is the case with any change, even in your own life, there's going to be a little bit of confusion. There's going to be a little of uncertainty. It's going to take some time to settle. So when you hear a lot of like the simmering strings that are like bubbling up, bubbling down, rapidly ascending arpeggios up, or staying kind of neutral and then picking a direction, basically feels to me like the way that life would take you. Sometimes you don't know where you're going to go, up, down, left, right, stay where you're at. But change is coming. Change is inevitable. And, there's a lot of beauty in change, especially when that change is going to look something like spring. So this is really cool. My first time reacting to Ludovico on the channel and really listening to this music in a very active way. Because oftentimes when I do listen to a lot of piano work, it tends to be in a passive listening sense where I just have it in the background, something pleasant, just so that there's something to fill that space, give me that feeling of like, okay, I feel prepared now to study, rather than putting my full focus and attention into the music. So now this is like an interesting shift for me, taking a look at Ludovico. But now let's jump into the next track here from Yann Tiersen. This is the Amelie soundtrack. Let's see if I remember any of the melodies. Oh, maybe. I don't remember exactly how the movie went. But this rhythm feels very familiar. Dun, 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 dun. Oh, I like that little syncopated melody. And it's a very consistent rhythm here. 1 and 2 and... Oh! Nice work with the arpeggios here. I love that we've kind of arrived at these frequencies here. It's a lot brighter even than what we heard before. Yeah, and now these arpeggios in a higher octave. And it feels like triplets against the 1 and 2 ands. It's a really cool polyrhythm. And you can pick out the melody in the left and right hands. You know, it's not necessarily bringing me back to that place where I was in high school, like watching this movie, because I remember, I think we watched this movie over the course of a week, you know, given that like each class isn't exactly the full length of a movie. You have to kind of split it up and talk about it. And I remember just at that time, like in French, a lot of the time we'd spend in class would be like discussing French film, listening to French music. So I spent some time at least dissecting different French songs, listening to them in the French lyrics, just enjoying the world of French entertainment, media, film, music. And it was an early class of mine. I would always have it like early on in the day, and it would just set me up to like have a very enjoyable, at least morning. I don't know. It, in a weird way, became one of my favorite classes because of how relaxed I could be there. But at the same time, I don't think I put in as much effort as I needed to get even more out of it, because I discovered a lot of amazing French music and film through that class. But I just think I was a bad student overall, so I wouldn't spend as much time being prepared for class, and then, you know, wouldn't take as much away from each lesson as I otherwise might have. So just like hearing this song, in a weird sense, it doesn't bring me back to that time and place, because if I had been paid more and more attention, it should have like immediately bring back that memory. But the song is so beautiful, and I do remember a bit of the at least rhythm that I'm hearing here. So at least it stayed with me a little bit subconsciously, learning through osmosis. I don't remember this part. Yann Tiersen. Just cool names, right? Yann Tiersen, Ludovico Einaudi. Well, the melody is pretty catchy. Like I said, I immediately get it, you know? I don't know why, but the feeling of this song is one of curiosity. dude. I'm actually really down to do more reactions to instrumental piano pieces. It's so calming. You just feel at ease. The intense moments when they're kind of fleeting. I think the Ludovico song was a little bit more intense than this Amelie track. But oftentimes piano music doesn't have to be intense to add that emotional feeling that you want. And when you think of like, your standard hard rock song or pop music, you get those big choruses often, right? So you feel those really big dynamic shifts in structure. But a lot of piano music is extremely subtle, far more subtle than the average pop song, right? Where you have distinct sections that really stick out like a sore thumb. And it's not a sore thumb in a bad sense. It just means that there are distinct sections to the songs. And with piano music, excellent composers find a way to thread the needle, make everything sound like it's part of the same section, make it feel extremely fluid, such that even if we do return to a previous melody or rhythmic pattern, it can still feel new, like we've made progress rather than repeating the big moments. And that's why amazing piano songs, they can just be listened to endlessly because they're all kind of like self-contained. You don't need to add more to them to get more out of it. They already kind of explain an entire universe. This definitely inspires me to go rewatch that Amelie movie. Maybe now with a bit more of my prefrontal cortex developed, I will take more away from a movie like that, because I remember my French teacher really raving on and on about that film and how impactful it was on French cinema and how many adoring fans favored this movie and its soundtrack. And I remember briefly like the bob cut, the short black hair of the lead actress in that film too. So the bits and pieces are there in my brain. I just need to go over it once more and imprint it more. But this is really enjoyable for me today. I hope you all enjoyed my reactions. If you did and would like to request a reaction yourself, whether it's more Ludovico, more Yann, more piano, more anything, you can do so by clicking the first link in the description box below. But as always, my friends, have a wonderful rest of your day. Take care and peace.